Loneliness, silence, anxiety. Too many men are carrying it alone. I'm Jack Starr, powerlifter, personal trainer, aerialist, and ex private investigator, and this is The Other Side of Tough. We're rewriting manhood one conversation at a time, and today I have my special guest, two-time national champion, Masters Division, Dolphins, Boucher. How you doing, my brother?
It's good to meet. It's good to be here, Jack. It's good to be
Uh-uh.
here. I'm doing
Yeah,
really well. I'm doing really well. I'm still on a little high from the meet we just had, so
yeah,
I'm
you
good.
crushed it. You absolutely crushed it. You set how many national records?
I set this meet. I set a squat record, a deadlift record, and total for the total.
Nice. That's fantastic. And I saw that deadlift, and it was beautiful. It came right off the ground. But yeah, let's get into things. Let's talk about things because you, like me, have a very diversified background. You know, you didn't just start off wanting to be a power lifter. Your life took many
Right.
different paths, many different traumatic paths, and you've worn many different hats in your life. And I think that's a really good place to start. Tell us how, you got from where you are to homicide detective to a power lifter.
Yeah. So I grew up in Vegas. My dad was in the military. He retired in like '72. He got a job out here because they had a test site. So we moved out into Vegas when it was a super small town. There was just like quarter of a million people was all that were here, and this is where we stayed. And so in high school, I started. I wasn't in sports in high school. I was in music. I played the trombone, and through high school, that's what I did, and I wanted to be a musician. And so I went to college, and I got about my second year in college, and I realized I wasn't going to be good enough to be a professional musician. That when you get to college, the kids in there, everybody could play several instruments. They could write music. And I could just play the trombone. And
Mm.
and so I made the realization, hey, I'm probably not gonna make a living doing this the way I want to. And I was working at a pizza store here in Vegas, and the guys who owned it, probably my third year in college, offered me an opportunity to be a part owner in the business. And so I did. I invested money into their business. I was a minority shareholder, and they had a very successful business. It's still around today. And so somewhere in my late 20s, I got married and I had a baby, and I I wanted to. I started having a feeling that like making pizzas wasn't fulfilling. Like I wanted to do something more in my community,
Uh,
and like serving pizzas is great. Like having a restaurant, people come in and they have a good time, and like there is a lot of reward to that emotionally. Like right, you're satisfying people's community because it's more of a community thing.
mhm.
But I just felt like I wanted to do something different, and I had met through the pizza store. I had met a guy named Mark Tavares who was a great mentor of mine. He started taking me on ride-alongs, and he's like, "Hey, if you're going to think about this job, you should know what you're getting into." So he took me on probably 40 ride-alongs. I would get off work and I would go meet him, and I'd jump in his car because he worked graveyard, and I'd ride all night. And so I was lucky enough to get hired, and when I was 31, I got hired, and in between that, I had gotten divorced and met another woman named Judy, and we had a baby too. So I had two kids when I first became a cop, and that was a whole new experience to me because I grew up pretty decent household, right? My mom and dad
Mhm.
were normal folks. My dad got sick when after he retired, he got sick, so he was home all the time,
Okay.
and so I really wasn't exposed to a lot. So those first few years of being a cop, the stuff you see on the streets and just some of
Especially
the
in
stuff.
Vegas.
Oh, it was just
Yeah.
crazy. And I remember like just a quick story. I remember about, I don't know, 2 years in maybe, I'm working graveyard, and I worked what's called the Naked City here in Vegas. And it's behind like where the Stratosphere is. And
Okay.
at the time it was a really bad neighborhood. Like it was really It was good as a new cop because there was just tons of crime. There was a lot of drugs, a lot of violence, and narcotics did a drug raid on this house, and afterwards they do what they call reverse sting. So once we bust the house open, we search it and everything. We have everybody in the house. We go in, and then the cops, the undercover cops, when somebody would knock on the door, they'd open the door and like, "Hey, what do you want?" And I want 2 for $20, and then let me see the money. And as soon as they show the money, they pull them in the house, and then they're under arrest for trying to buy drugs.
Wow.
And so all the people they arrested were people I saw in the community that I thought were the good people in the community, because it was kind of a mix. It was kind of a mix. There were a handful of people who were like you knew were bad folks, and then there were a lot of older people that you thought were just living there because they were poor, and they were the ones. And I kept being shocked, right? Like, because I'd worked patrol there on graveyard for almost a year, and I was like, what? Like every time it happened, my mind was blown. And that was the first time I really recognized that everybody lied to the cops, and I had to be a little more mature about how I looked at people. Because up until then, there was a part of me that was still naive and giving people the benefit of the doubt, and just to, oh, they're not here. So it was a bit of a wake up. It was a moment for me where I was like, okay, you got to kind of reevaluate and like kind of be less naive. You can't be so childish, so to speak, about, giving everybody. And so, but it was the first time I figured out people lie to the police. Everybody lied to the police. Like everybody.
I bet from that day to the day that you retired, you hardened a lot and you're a lot more.
Well, and I tried not to, because, one of the things that Mark, that guy, spoke about, one of the things Mark had talked to me about was cops get this thing called the cowboy syndrome, where you become a cop and you get accustomed to telling people what to do. And so you kind of become a jerk. And they warned you about it in the police academy too, that, you kind of start to feel that way and you feel you're more important. And so one of the things I tried to do was maintain my friends outside of law enforcement, not just my friends in law enforcement.
Okay.
And to some degree, I think that helped me keep an even keel, because I think maybe for a period of time I was like that a little bit, but I never got really bad. Like I feel like when I retired, I was the same kind of person that I was when I got there. So, but anyway, on the police department, I worked patrol for a while. I worked in training. I went back to patrol as a training officer, and then I went to the bureau. I tested for the detective bureau because my intention was to promote, and I thought it would do me a benefit to work in the detective bureau. So I was kind of well-rounded. I had experience in training. I had experience in patrol. So I thought the detective bureau would benefit me to promote. And then when I got to the detective bureau, I realized that that's where I should be. I was very good at it. I was good at speaking with people. I was good at working cases and figuring out what happened. And, when you're a detective, there's more. Like when you work patrol, you arrest somebody, you go book them, you write an arrest report, and then you're pretty much done. Where as a detective, you have to put a case together that's prosecutable. So, even when those cops arrest people, that case comes, to the bureau somewhere, and then you have to do whatever follow-ups required.
Now, I have a question. Were you a homicide detective or a narcotics detective?
No. I worked first as a burglary detective. Back then they used to have property crimes detectives. So I did burglaries.
Okay.
And then I worked there about 6 months. And then back then, it's not this way anymore, but back then with my agency, you got to better assignments like sex crimes or narcotics or gangs or robbery, homicide. You would get to those if you did a good job in property crimes. If they noticed you, they'd bring you over. And so one of the sergeants that I knew from when I worked in training became a sergeant in sexual assault. And I happened to run into him around Christmas time at there's a place here called Opportunity Village that everybody takes their kids to. It's this beautiful place with lots of lights and Santa and all that. And I saw him there, and he was like, "Hey, you're in the bureau. Would you be interested in coming to sex crimes?" And so I did. I went to sexual assault, and I worked there for, I think, 2.5, 3 years. And then I worked on a thing called Internet Crimes Against Children, which was a FBI task force, and you work like child pornography cases. And back then, their purview was, all the online stuff was happening. So you would work on what they called travelers. You'd go online and, hey, I'm Julie and I'm 15, and and if the men solicit you, then you would arrange for them to come to Vegas, and then we would arrest them for, trying to meet up with a child. Yeah. And they had specific charges back then, but kind of like what Chris Hansen used to do. That's kind of what we did. But it was a big task force with the FBI. So it was, but I gained a lot of knowledge there. I learned how to do a lot of things that helped me go to homicide, because homicide you had to test for separately. I tested twice before I got there. It was hard to get there at the time. There was 24 spots, and you had to wait for somebody to leave. Like there wasn't a lot of openings. I got fortunate, and I got in there in like 2005, and I worked there until the end of my career.
Wow. And when did you retire?
In 2020, I retired.
2020.
I did exactly 15 years in homicide.
That's amazing. And thank you for all that hard work, because I know, like, just working, something like sex crimes or crimes against children can really have an impact on you, having to, like, witness that material, like, talk to victims of those crimes. And I'm sure it, wore heavily on your soul, being a father yourself. But I thank you for, taking that kind of suffering in to bring, these evil people to justice.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, it did. By the time I was working there, I had all four of my kids. So I had three daughters and then a son. And I think it ended up being rough on my kids because, there was a period of time where I wouldn't let my kids go anywhere. Like, they never were allowed to have sleepovers.
Yeah.
Because of the things you saw. Like, it's hard to believe, but the statistics bear out. Like, when I was working in sex crimes, 1 in 4 kids have some sort of sexual abuse. That was the statistic. Now, I can't tell you what it is today because I haven't done that in a bit. But back in 2003, 2004, that was the statistic. And I think that wore on me emotionally as a father, where, I wanted to do everything I could to protect my kids. And so I think if you were to speak to my kids, there was probably some, like, Dad didn't let us do anything, or, he was really strict about certain.
Yeah.
So, but the flip side was my kids' friends all hung out at our house. Like, our house was the place. So when my kids had friends, they would come over to our house, and I knew all of my kids' friends, which I always thought was important. But I do think some of that was hard on my kids because they probably felt like they missed out on certain things because of the things I saw and, tried to shield them from.
Yeah. And, who can blame you for that? And there's also another caveat I've heard to that statistic, the 1 in 4 are abused, is that a majority of the victims are abused by someone they know. It's not like random, it's not stranger danger. It's usually someone that they're familiar with or a relative in the home.
It's incredible how true that is. Yeah. And that was my thing with, like, sleepovers. Cause, say I know the parents, like, I know you and I know each other well enough, right? Like, we don't get to see each other because we live in different states, but you have neighbors that you think are good folks. You may spend time with them, do things with them, so you trust them. But say at their house, there's another 14-year-old boy, and your daughter's sleeping over with their daughter. You don't know what that 14-year-old boy is or what he could do, or, maybe an uncle. Like, for a couple years at my house, my wife's brother was living with us, and he was a good guy, don't get me wrong, but he's living in my house. So if somebody sleeps over, they may not know that he's at the house. They may not know him to make a decision about, like, we feel okay with him. Like, oh, we trust Dolphins, but, we don't know him. So those were always my concerns. But, there's kind of those, you got to weigh both things, right? Sometimes you got to let your kids do stuff, and sometimes you got to hope for the best. But during that period of time for me, I think I was really strict on them. I think in the thing you gave me, one of the things I wrote We talked about, like the things you know now versus the things you know.
Yeah.
And you do the best you can in that moment, right? So, in that time and the things I knew and saw, I was trying to be the best father I could. So,
And I think you always have to realize that is that a lot of times looking back in the past, what could I've done better? The important thing to do with that is show your past self grace.
yeah,
That they had the best intentions and they did the best with what they had, with the information they had, what they knew from the world. Maybe you wouldn't do it today because there's new information or new experiences you've had. But I think it's always important for growth and healing, to show your past selves, that sort of grace.
I agree with that. And I think that's a really important point because I think a lot of people, we don't do that. And as I've gotten older, I recognize like you can't undo the things you've done. You can just learn from them and do better.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And so you retired from the police force. Uh,
Yes.
and then how did you get into powerlifting? Like everyone always asks me that. They're like, how did you get into powerlifting? Like they look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah. Well,
I want to hear your story. How did you get
yeah.
into powerlifting?
So when I like around 2000, I don't know, 3 or 4, when I had just become a detective, they make you get a physical on the police department every year. And my physical, my blood pressure was high. And so one of them, there was something that showed up on my heart and they were worried about it. So they sent me to the doctor. And he said, no, everything's okay, but you have high blood pressure. So I started seeing a cardiologist on a regular basis. And I don't know, 2 or 3 years in, I had a heart murmur. And then they did they did some tests and they said, hey, you have a bad valve. So the valve in my heart, you're supposed to have 3 chambers, and it's like three, like hearts like this. Well, I only had 2, so I had a bicuspid valve, I think they called it. I can't remember
Okay.
but it only has 2, and as a result of that, it works harder, and so it wears out quicker and it gets calcified. So at the time, my doctor told me, he's like, you're not going to need to worry about it. I'll be retired before we need to worry about it. So, but the one thing I did do was start lifting at home. So I bought because I worked homicide and I worked so much, it was hard to get to the gym. And our department, we don't have gyms in our police stations because it's like this liability if you get injured while you're training there. Now it's a workman's comp issue. And
It's not like the TV shows.
No, and a lot of places do have them. I think our department was getting, because they used to have them when I hired on, and people were getting injured on duty, and then it becomes a non-duty injury, and now they're on workman's comp. And so from just a business model, it makes sense why they don't have them. But so I bought a squat rack. A friend of mine had a bunch of weights that he was trying to get rid of, and so I was like, hey, I'll take them. So I bought a squat bar, and then I did 5x5, if you know what that is.
Yep, that's how I started too. Starting strength 5x5.
There was some guy who had an app, and it was called 5x5, and I put it on my phone, and he had some videos on how to squat, bench, deadlift, bent over rows. And so I stuck to that.
Though? It's like one of the greatest starting points for anyone that wants to get into like real lifting, because it teaches you how to program, it teaches you progressive overload, and it really, teaches you how to get through sets. So,
and you get stronger faster.
It's great.
I couldn't believe I started everything with the bar. And, in 6 months, I'm squatting 275, and my deadlift really took off. I realized that I was pretty good at that. And so I did that. And then eventually, I would get to a point where I get busy at work, and then I'd miss some workouts. So I'd have to drop back down and start. But I did that for a long time. And then I started programming like regular workouts and doing more to try and keep my health good. And then when I retired, just before I retired, me and my wife, we bought a house in a different part of the city, and where we live, you have to park your cars in the garage. And so I didn't have a gym, but I knew I was retiring, so I intentionally got rid of my gym because I wanted to make sure in retirement I didn't just stay home all the time. Because
Okay.
I was kind of worried that once I retired, I saw a lot of guys retire and then they just kind of stay around the house, they don't do anything. And if I only had to go in the garage to work out, it would be a problem.
Yeah.
So when I first retired, I went to a little gym around the corner. There was a guy, a trainer there named Samir, who's a really good trainer. And I lost like 20 pounds in 3 months. He got me all trained up. And he kind of said to me like, "Hey, you shouldn't train at this little gym. You have potential to be better. Like go to there's a UFC fit. We went over there and he's like, you should be training here. There's a lot more you could do. I'll give you a program that you could do there." And I started doing that. And so in 2022, my valve became bad and I had to get an open heart surgery. So I'm in the doctor's office and I'm getting an angiogram because my doctor, I'm telling him like I'm getting lightheaded when I squat and stuff. And he's like, "Well, your echo looks good, but you know, if you really want it, I'll do it." And I go, "No, I really want it." So we get the angiogram and I think they're going to come in and tell me like they put a stent in or something while I was asleep, you know, like that's what I figured. And he comes in and goes, "Hey, your heart's all good, except you need to get that valve replaced." And I was like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Well, you're going to have open heart surgery. We're going to have to put in a new valve." And so I was like, "Okay, that's what we got to do. We got to do it."
How did that hit you? I mean, did you think about mortality? Did you think about your family when, you know, how did that hit you? Or was it just like, did it just go over and you said, it's something I got to do?
Well, it was kind of both. I mean, you know, obviously I'd be lying if I didn't think like, "Oh shit, this is going to be a big deal. This isn't like, you know, something little."
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's one of those like, what choice do you have, right? Like you either live it out and you don't live long, or you get it done and hope that you live a long time. So he told me we could do it in 10 weeks, and we did. And you know, the next morning the next morning I get up and they make you walk like right after the surgery. So I'm like, "Hey, what's the farthest anybody walked the first day?" You know, and they're like, "Oh, the end of the hall." I go, "Well, then we're going to walk the whole hall. Like, I want to break the record," you know? So, that was it. You know, the surgery, it's uncomfortable. I was miserable for the first like month because, you have to wait for your chest plate to heal. So there's this pillow, this big heart-shaped pillow they give you, and you got to hold it whenever you cough. And there's a lot of coughing. So it's very uncomfortable. You have to sleep sitting up for like a month. It's just like now it's just a faint memory, right? But at the time it was a little strugglesome, but I got through that and I had a couple incidents where there was some fluid around the heart, had to go back to the hospital. But I mean, all in all, it healed up. And as soon as that, I got to where I could get back in the gym. There was a friend of mine named Sam, a girl, and Sam saw one of my lifts that I posted from the UFC fit, and she messaged me and was like, "Hey, you actually are pretty strong for a guy your age. You should come to FQ and meet my coach Albert. You might be good at powerlifting." And I talked to my wife and I was like, "Hey, what do you think? That sounds fun. Like I do like lifting heavy." And she's like, "Yeah, go do it." So I went and met Albert, and right away we hit it off, and he explained to me the process and, you know, what he charged and everything. And I was like, "All right, we'll start Monday." And then I think I did a meet 6 months later, 4 months later. I did a meet pretty quick, and which was so much fun. And I bombed out on my squats.
Was that the one where you ripped your shirt?
Yes. So I'll explain that because everybody thinks I'm just showing off my pecs.
No, I know that. I mean, of course, from hearing this story, I know
Yeah.
now. But
Yeah.
I thought that was such a cool moment.
Yeah. So I bomb out on squats,
Mhm.
and you know, Albert's kind of disappointed because he never had somebody bomb out. And then you know Kaylani Richardson.
I love her. Yeah, she's wonderful.
Kaylani comes over and she goes, "Are you done or are you still going to compete?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm fucking competing. Like I'm not done. I still got stuff to do." So I was able to enter push pull. at that point.
Uh-huh.
So then
Okay.
I went 6 for 6 on the push pull. And so Micah Marino on my last deadlift, you know how he always has the productions at his meets, which is so
Yeah.
cool. Well,
Yeah.
this meet, you walk out and he introduces you. And so he says to me back with Albert, he's like, hey, if you get this lift, you got to pull down your shirt and show your scar.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's talking before, like, hey, this is Dolphins. He's 100 years old. And, he's making fun of my age. And so I get the lift and they start yelling, show the scar, show the scar. So I pull the shirt down and I show the scar. And then it just became a thing. Like every meet now I show the scar. And so, but it's funny at nationals because they just think I'm showing off my chest. Nobody really knows, look, I'm not very well known in that, bigger circle. So,
Yeah.
but just for the record, I'm just showing off the scar and it's just become a thing if I get my lift. But it's good luck because I haven't missed a deadlift, a third deadlift since I started competing.
That's amazing.
So every meet I've gotten, I think it was 501, 529, 540, and then 551 at this meet. Oh no, I'm sorry. 529 at the second meet, 551, and then I got 556 at this meet.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. And it's just a testament because I'm a personal trainer and I train a lot of, older people that are older, and I'm older too. I'm in the masters division. And a lot of men tend to just stop physical activities after their 30s or after they have like a job or whatever. They'll stop physical activities. And I'm like, that is the exact opposite thing you should be doing. Because if you want any kind of longevity in life, you should be lifting heavy. And the testament to that is people like you. I have another friend named Linda. She's
I know Linda,
old masters national champion, and she looks gorgeous. She looks like she drank the fountain of youth, right? And when we met at the 2024 meet, mm-hmm.
I followed Linda on Instagram, and me and my wife were on the elevator, and I'm like, are you Linda? Are you Linda? Like, I follow you. I totally just geeked out on her, and she was so sweet.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. She just did another. She's going to Worlds. I just saw her compete on the last meet she was on. She's so strong, and
she is amazing. Yeah. She always has like kind words. Like when I was going through my injuries and stuff, she was like DMing me and just giving me support. And just being a supportive person. So it's great that I have this community of older lifters because they inspire me and they make me want to push myself. And, like I said in that post that you put for nationals, I was like, I want to be like you. And I mean that. I really do want to be like you. I want to be as fit as you. I want to be as youthful as you. I want to be as strong as you when I'm in my 60s,
Well, I appreciate that. Training at FQ or, where we are now, there's so many strong people there. So when you train there, you don't feel that strong. Like, right. I have to always put in perspective. I'm 60. But in my head, I don't really feel old yet. And so you see all these guys and women too. There's at least 5 women in the gym that outlift me, that, out squat me, and can deadlift even with me. Like, they're just strong people at our gym. Yeah. And so it's hard to keep perspective until I get to nationals. Like, when I go to nationals and then you see where you stack up with other people your age, and you realize, oh, okay, I'm not like the weakling in the group. I'm just as strong as everybody else. And
not only that, it's like you're one of the only ones there. You know what I'm saying? And that really puts things in perspective. Like I'm in my 40s and, I go to a powerlifting meet and I don't see many people rarely in my division past my age. And I'm like, that's a testament. That's a testament that we're continuing to do this. And I think that is more of a statement than, a 20 or 30-year-old, hitting their prime, hitting their peak, and then fluttering out. I think it takes a lot more dedication and resilience to last.
I agree with that. Do you get a lot of people asking you why you're like, the biggest thing I get is people trying to convince me to stop doing this, that they're worried. And I think it's genuine concern. I don't think it's um, I, I think people are, friends of mine, people who I'm close to, get concerned that I'm going to get hurt or that, we're lifting so much weight. And, you see those, those viral videos where some guy's squatting and he blows both knees out or whatever. And,
Yeah.
and we know that's a part of it, but it's a part of anything you do competitively that you could get injured. But for me, that's the one thing I feel is that I think a lot of people, like when I left my old gym, everybody was like, "Oh, you're going to hurt your back. You're going to hurt this. You're going to."
Mm.
I've had one injury and that was mild. Like I've hurt my back one time and it was my fault because I got out of position on a squat. And that was it. Like other than the normal, your arms hurt when like my arms get
And
sore.
all
My
the
arms get
familiar
really sore right before
sure.
meets.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just curious. Do you get that same thing?
I do. And you know who I get it from? And it started when I first started lifting. And who I get it from are the people that are closest to me. It was family members, it was close friends. It wasn't like strangers telling me it. It was like the people closest to me. And I would, I kind of just had to ignore it. And I'm really like, I appreciate it, but this is my path. This is my passion. And in the end, I feel that this is this is reinforcing injury prevention in my later years. Because, if you aren't strengthening your bones, right? Heavy lifting has been scientifically shown to intensify bone calcium, and make your bones stronger, make your joints stronger. And when you get into old age, it's like you're going to throw out your back just by getting up. You're going to throw out your back by tying your shoe. So I'd rather throw out my back deadlifting or squatting than being, it's like, do you have the misery now or do you live in misery later?
It's
That's how I see
and
it.
and the truth is because at least in my mind, because we're training this way, we're strengthening all those things so that maybe we won't get those. And so my mom, she died at 83, my mom, and she was very active until about 79, 80. And then she became really inactive. Like it became harder for her to walk. She was in the hospital. She had something in her stomach and when she left, she got a walker. And my I will remember this till the day I die. I took her to my doctor and he told her, you need to start walking every day without the walker to get your legs stronger because if you don't, you will eventually be in a scooter and then a wheelchair and then you'll die. And he's like, I'm not saying it to scare you. I'm just telling you, if you don't keep using this, it's going to be a problem. And he described exactly what would happen, and it happened just the way he told her. She got to the point where she couldn't get out of a chair anymore. Then she had to go in a home. She had to wear diapers, like all these terrible things, which were humiliating for my mom. And and once she got to a certain point, she couldn't fix it. And she got heavier as she got older, but she didn't like eat terribly.
Yeah.
She didn't move anymore. And once that happened, it was like, I don't know, 2.5 years from the time he told her till the time she died. And by the time she died, she was at a point. I mean, I remember having a conversation with my mom where she was like, "Why won't God just take me? Like, I'm ready to go." And unfortunately, she passed. And I was happy because my mom lived a wonderful life. So I don't mourn her. I miss her, obviously, but she had a wonderful life. She died when she was ready to go. And so that was all good. But it ingrained in me that I'm never going to stop squatting. I'm never going to stop exercising because if you lose your legs, then that's the end of everything.
I train a doctor, and she was telling me that, with the patients she gets, that past 70 years old, that one of the kisses of death are hip replacement surgeries. She said after that, people tend to pass pretty quickly after that. And she was telling me, she's like, the things that strengthen that are, lifting heavy weights, putting, pressure on the hips and building, the hip flexors up. That's what's going to prevent, you from having to have hip surgery later in life, and possibly, suffering like your mom did and
Yeah.
death. along the way. So
So yeah, I
I
think
feel
it's
like
good
living in
advice.
fountain of youth.
Yeah, I agree. I think that training, and I think training heavy. I honestly feel as good as I've ever felt in my, even with the heart surgery, even with, I'm a little heavy now because I bulked up right at the end of my,
Mhm,
you know, because weight moves weight. So,
mhm. It
um,
sure
and
does.
but I both, so I'm a little heavy right now, which is fine. It's coming back off, but even with all that, I still feel as strong as I've ever felt, and I feel as healthy as I've ever felt.
I'm telling you, you don't look a day over, early 50s at all. So it is
Well,
a fountain of youth. You look
oh,
a lot younger than you are.
well, thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate that. So
Uh-huh.
I'll make sure I tell my wife that later.
um, yeah, and I remember yeah, being at nationals and meeting you and your wife and your family and stuff. So is your family generally like very supportive when they come out to the meets? Do they usually travel with you to the meets, or they kind of let you have that thing and be your own thing?
No, so two of my kids live in Portland, and then two of them live here. My son lives here with me, and my oldest daughter Sarah lives in Vegas as well. She's a teacher here. She's traveled. When we went to nationals, that her and her, now he's her husband. She just got married.
Mm.
Um, they traveled and came and saw me compete there. This year she couldn't. They couldn't go. My son tried to come this time, but he couldn't get one of the days off, so he wasn't able to come. But yeah, no, they come to the meets. The last meet we did here in Vegas, I think my son came. My daughter, I can't remember if she was at the very last one, but yeah, my daughter comes quite a bit. There's actually a really great picture. I think it was my second meet. My daughter, I got my deadlift and she came running up and jumped on me and gave me a hug. And
Oh, that's the
hey,
best feeling.
Kaylani was all confused. Kaylani's like, "Who's this? That's not your wife?" And I'm like, "This is my daughter." And she's like,
Oh,
"Oh, okay." It was a really sweet moment. And they happened to get a really nice picture. I had this great picture of my daughter, like, jumped up on me and giving me a hug.
oh.
And then my son's come to the meet with several of his friends. And so, no, they're crazy supportive. Before we went on camera, I was explaining to you, I'm going to probably start competing in the um, USAPL.
Mhm.
And I had a long talk, same with my wife. I had a talk with my wife, and she's like, listen, if this is what makes you happy, then go do it. Like it would be amazing if you could compete at that level and, you know, chase your dreams. So yeah, my
It's like
family's very
Dolphins is
supportive.
like Rocky talking to Adrian. She's like, win.
That's the analogy I gave my wife. I'm like, you need to be Adrian, and I need you to say, "Go win."
Win.
Yeah, it's so funny you said that. I literally said to her, "I need you to be." I need because she was like, "Hey, if you want to do it, do it." And I go, "No, I need you to be Adrian, and I want you to be more like you got to be all in." So
More
yeah, but
dramatic. I want more
oh
drama.
yeah, I want the oh. So yeah, it's funny. But yeah, so I'm fortunate in that way. My friends are very supportive. My friends have concerns, obviously, right? Like
Mhm.
6-year-old guy squatting, almost 500 pounds is scary. I can understand why it's concerning. And but my friends also are super supportive. Like when my buddy Bob, when I went to nationals with you, and they gave us,
Mhm.
the first one, they gave us the little plastic medal.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
was like so upset. He's like, plastic? This is what you got for first place? And I'm like, yeah, it's just what everybody got. He goes, it's a medal, it's a medal. And he went and got me a trophy of somebody deadlifting and put
Oh, that's
on it.
awesome.
He's like, this is what you deserve. And
You know,
so,
I like talked to Megan, who runs the PLU, after nationals, and I was like, "Oh man, the event was great." I was like, "It's just just a little point of criticism, like the medals could be a little bit better." And she's like, "You know what? It was our first year. We had to get them out right away, but I promise you, we're gonna have like amazing medals from now on." And I've been watching them, and the medals look awesome.
This year they're actually metal, and they were very nice.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, to Powerlifting United's credit, that was a spectacular meet they put on.
Mhm.
I didn't go last year because I had to have a revision surgery on my scar, but
Yeah.
but wow, I was super impressed. The big screens and the warm up room was really well. Everything went really smoothly. I
Yeah.
thought it was going to be a lot slower because they had so many lifters,
Mhm.
and it was perfect. You had just like it was really a great meet. Like I was honestly very impressed, and the both the production and how they handled it, and obviously some of the guys they got to come in there, guys and gals at the end. Those last day lifters were phenomenal.
They
Just
were. They were.
really strong
And that's
people.
why I love competing. And that's, I recommend this to any man, in going into older age, like 40s, 50s, 60s, compete in something, even if it's just like a 5K or something like that, because it's good to go out and meet other people that are active. And I get such
Yeah.
inspiration from going to those powerlifting meets and just meeting people and meeting these amazingly strong people and just having talks to them and realizing, you see one thing on Instagram, but then you meet them in person and they are just people like you and me, and they have their own story about how they got here, and it's inspiring.
They all have great stories. And the other thing that I found so great is everyone roots for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if you and I are the same age and weight class, neither one of us is sitting there going, don't get it, don't get it. Like, everybody just wants everyone to succeed. Look, everybody wants to go there and do well, but I haven't experienced a single person, like, at least for me directly, that didn't that wasn't cheering for everyone else, that
Oh,
wasn't hoping for to see everyone. And then when someone doesn't succeed, they're still supportive. And it's one of the few communities that I guess that I experience that's like that. I don't know that all competitive, like, I don't know that pickleball guys are,
yeah.
cheering on other guys to win, where this sport, everybody wants everyone to succeed and better the
Mhm.
sport and further it.
And
And
I think that's so important too, because I saw this meme online and it's like, if you're a power lifter, there's a 99.9% chance you're never going to make money off of the sport. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? And exactly, I know that I'm never going to be at the level where I'm going to make any kind of career from powerlifting, but it is the people you meet along the way. It is the experience of, competing in front of judges and having that professional experience and meeting professional athletes and being in the presence of greatness. It really it infects you in a good way, you know.
no, and it drives you. So, you know, during this prep, I was getting worn out, and we get to the end of the prep, and I told Albert, I said, "Hey, I think I'm too heavy. I'm going to lose some weight after this. So, I might take a break from competing for a little bit, lose some weight, and then we'll reassess." That's kind of was in my head. And then I got my first squat at this meet, and then I got 451, which was a PR for me. I've never done that before, and I got it at the meet,
Oh,
and that was it. I didn't tell him, but I came back and I was like, I'm not done competing. Like, now I got to get 463, and so yeah, it keeps you motivated. And listen, one of the things I believe is, if you don't have a purpose in your life,
mhm.
then you're not going to have much of a life, right? Like, we need things, whether it's your job, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your family. But if you don't have some kind of purpose, then I think you just kind of, I, I think you need that to keep going forward in life. I think you need purpose. And this is one of those things that, I love playing golf. I play golf like 3 or 4 times a week. I have buddies and it's fun. There's camaraderie. Um, but it's not the same as this. Golf is a leisure sport. Look, it takes a lot of talent. I'm not very good at it, but it's not the same as going to a meet and trying to do your best and achieving
Having
something you've
pressure and
never,
intensity,
huh?
having pressure and intensity.
Yeah. And then
Mhm.
achieving something that when I first met Albert, my goal was to squat I wanted to squat 405. I wanted to deadlift 495, and I wanted to bench 315. And I haven't got 315. I'm not sure if I ever will, but I mean, I squatted 451 and I deadlifted 465 or 565. And I'm pretty sure that day I could have deadlifted 573.
You got
Like
it.
it was, I mean, you saw that lift. My lift flew.
You got it in you.
The
It
kid
moved
behind
on.
me was the kid behind me was like, "What is it?" Like,
Spoke there.
so I think there's more in me, and you know, I had a friend message me on Facebook recently, a guy that I was a cop with, who's a couple years older than me,
Okay.
and he was like, "How do you keep getting stronger? Like, I'm only a few years older than you, and I have no energy anymore, and I'm." You know, I can't, I seem to be losing strength. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm not where you're at age wise, but you're only a few years. I'm like, it's constant programming. I go, I lift the program that he tells me, and I go, you know, like now I'm at the point where I'm not jumping, you know, 30 pounds. I may only jump 5 pounds each meet, but I'm still getting stronger every meet.
Yeah.
So
than what most people are doing, which is declining. So even staying at a level is success, you know,
yeah.
the age.
And but going to those meets is motivational for me. Like I really, and you know, Albert joked with me that like the meets are where I shine. Like I do, there's something about the crowd, there's something about the moment that I, for whatever reason, I step up to the moment.
You know what
And
I think it is? And I think I share it with you because I have an acting background too. And it's kind of a need for performance. And so when we get out there, I think we see a stage and we see the audience and we feed off the energy. I know I do. Like, I really feed off that energy of the audience. Like, I can really feel that they want me to succeed. And like, I want to perform in front of them. I want to give them a fucking show. And I see that with you. And that's why
it's,
I love
I,
watching you live so much. It's because there's so much passion and like, you don't care. You'll put it all out there. You know, you'll put on a show. And that's what I love about our former fighter quit gym is that, like, you know, people like Micah encourage that, you know, it's like, fuck humble, right? Like,
yeah,
be your
yeah,
authentic self.
yeah. And, you know, when I'm around people, you know, I joke about being boastful about it, but I'm really not. But when I'm there, yeah, it's like, it's exactly what you said. Like, you know, getting that deadlift or like the squat was really the one. Like the 451, I was that one in my head, I wasn't sure. The 565 I knew I could get, but the squat I wasn't sure. And once I got the squat, the day was like in my head, the day was done. I was like, I'm not missing a lift. And then, you know, every lift is and you know, all the silliness that I do. But yeah, that's the point of the whole thing, right? Like that will be the one downside with USAPL is I have to, you know, I have to roll that back a
little.
So, but yes, I'm with you. When I hit the platform, I don't want to fail in front of people. It's a struggle for me when I do. I don't like not, you know, I don't like people showing up to support me and then letting them down, right? And Albert puts, you know, I think you probably said it a million times. It's 3 months of training for 9 minutes, right?
Mhm.
But you got to shine those 9 minutes. Like all that work is so you can show off what you did.
Yeah. All your
And all
hard
that time. So yeah, and I'm with you. I was, you know, when I was young, I performed, and if I could have been a professional musician, I would have. I loved performing. It was so great, and you know, the realization in college that I just wasn't going to be quite good enough. That was like, it was humbling, but it also was like I played the trombone from fourth grade till 2 years in college. And I was really good in Las Vegas. Like in Las Vegas, they have an honor band, and I was always first chair in the honor band. I was in it every year. I was in all the groups. And then you get to college and you're like, oh my God, these guys are so talented. They were just so talented. Everyone that I met was so much more talented than me. And and I was just, you know, like people who can write music, and I couldn't do it. And so, you know, you have to finally come to the realization that like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. Like I have to acknowledge, and you know what? I had a great career at the pizza place. Like I was very well, I was like the world pizza spinning champion for like 3 years. Like,
But you know what? All those things, like, and this is how I see my life also, and this is what I wanted to get to with the wearing different hats thing, is that all these things translate into like how you perform in powerlifting. Because I feel like my like acting experience, like I went out to LA and I found that, acting was at a whole nother level when I came out, and I was like, it's not for me. But I still retain that those skills that I learned from acting, and one of them is performing in front of many people. So I don't get the jitters, or I do get the jitters when I perform or like compete in a powerlifting meet when a bunch of people are cheering and watching. But I've learned through performance how to use those jitters to like really enhance, whatever activity I'm doing. And I feel like a lot of people don't have that. A lot of powerlifters, especially the first meet, they come out there and like they get stage fright.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I could see that. I mean, my first three, I bombed out of squats. My
Uh,
first three squats, I was nervous as hell. And then once I blew it, I was just like, well, whatever now. But now it's different. Now now that I've tasted doing well, yeah, I'm very driven to succeed and push myself. And look, that goes with like my whole life, right? Like playing the instrument was competitive. Um, being the pizza guy, when I was the pizza champion, that was a competitive thing. And
I
then,
learned a lot about business from doing the pizza, so you know how to
sure,
manage money well now.
well, try to, but then being a cop too, it's kind of a competitive thing. Like,
Mm.
being a homicide guy, there's 24 of you, and um, I wanted to put bad people in jail. Like I wanted people, the worst of the worst to be in jail. So it was always important to me. I took that very serious, and it, I don't want to say it was a competition because it wasn't. It was about finding justice for people's families, right? Like you want to be able to look the family in the face and say, I figured out who killed your loved one, and I made a case strong enough that they're going to go to prison. Um, but it's but it is competitive in that, like, if you're not driven to do that, the cases can go away. And I saw that, I mean, I've been to a lot of agencies, and it's hit and miss, even with who your detective gets. And so I never wanted that to be the case with me. So I always worked hard, and I think that just carries over. I think everybody who competes has a certain drive that pushes them to be as good as they can be all the time.
100.
That's why you see everybody take it so serious. Like none of us are making money, right? But
Yeah.
some guy missed it. I remember at nationals,
Uh-huh.
the one I met you, a guy missed his lift and he came back and threw his belt across the room. Like he missed a bench, and he's fuck, and he throws his thing, and I'm on cloud nine because I'm like 6 for 6
Yeah.
at that point. Um and so I kind of chuckled because for me it's so much fun, but if I missed a lift, I would be pissed too. Like,
Yeah.
right? We all take it, like there's so much work that goes into it, and there's so much competitiveness with yourself. You want to be better than you were yesterday. You want to be.
And I mean, you take those lumps too. I mean, I'm gonna admit it. Like I've gone to meets and I've missed lifts, and I've gone like in the back, like where no one is, and I've bawled my eyes out. But
Yeah.
I like stop crying. I get back up and I like come out and I'm good. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just blessed to be lifting weights. Like
Oh yeah.
what a blessing it is to be here. And that's what I tell myself. And you know what? Like I look back at those missed lifts, and that was all information for me. And it felt bad at the time, but it really helped me become a better lifter. And like, yeah, I could bomb out, you know, any lift, and I'm gonna tell myself like, hey, I'm here and I'm lifting weights, and a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do that. And what a blessing that is.
Yeah. That's always my thought. How lucky I am to be able to go, like where I'm at now. I'm retired and I get to go to a gym and train, and I can feed myself properly. I can take care of my family, and I can train and take care
Mhm.
of my health. And you know,
Perspective is everything.
I'm so blessed. Like every part of my life is a blessing.
Mhm.
At least I see it that way for me. I feel unbelievably bl- just blessed. Like
Yeah.
So fortunate.
You know, you're blessed with a wonderful family, and you're a wonderful father. And so I wanted to ask you, because I think the audience needs to know this. Give us one piece of fatherly advice to the audience that'll help raise solid children like yours.
So, well, there's a couple things. Like, there are moments when I look back, I don't know that I was the best father. I think I was, especially when my kids were younger, I was harder on them. You
Mhm.
know, there was, so, like, to jump back, my
Okay.
father grew up in the 40s and 50s. And I'll give you an example. My father gave me this story one time where some kids chased him home from school and they were going to beat him up. And so my dad comes running home and he goes in the house and his father happened to be home. He wasn't supposed to be. And his father was like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, these kids were trying to beat me up. They chased me home." And his father made him go back outside and fight them.
Mm.
And my dad got beat up and he made him fight him again and he beat him up again. My grandfather keeps making him continue fighting until finally he wins. But he really wins because the kid just feels bad that he's beating the crap out of my father and he lets him go.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so my father grew up, growing up with me, I was in like kindergarten or first grade, second grade. I don't remember what grade, but I got in a fight with some kid on the way home from school and he beat me up. And when I got home, I was crying. I was on the steps and I'm taking my shoes off and I'm crying. And my dad happens to be home and he comes out and I'm crying and he's like, what's going on? And I tell him, and he's angry at me because not because I got beat up, but because I was crying about it.
Mm.
And then the kid showed up at the house later and he was much bigger than me. And my dad saw the kid and then he wasn't so mad. Then he was like, "That's the kid you got beat up by?" And I was like, "Yeah." And the kid was like a head taller than me or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's all kid stuff. But those two things always stuck with me when I was a kid.
Mhm.
And as I grew into a man, I tried not to be that way. And, you kind of parent like your parents parent.
Mhm.
So, I got spanked when I was a kid.
Mhm.
I think I spanked each one of my kids once, and
Okay.
then I didn't like doing that.
Mhm.
And by spanking, I mean like a swat on the butt. I don't
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, you got the belt, and
My grandparents gave me the bare ass spanking.
yeah, my dad would pull a belt out. It was a whole process,
Oh,
and so to get to your point about your question, what I
yeah.
tried hard not to do was some of the things that my father did that I didn't care for. So
Okay.
like I I tried to be loving with my kids. I tried to do things with my kids. I don't know that I always succeeded in that. I don't
Mhm.
know if you were to ask my kids today,
Yeah.
but my kids are all good, right? Like
Mhm.
one of my children is a therapist. One of my children works for the state. One of my children works for an airline. And my oldest daughter, Sarah, the one that was at the meet,
You
she's a
got
school.
an award recently, right?
Yeah, she was the STEM teacher of the year. She's very accomplished. And look, all of my kids are, not to single her out, but
Mm.
she's received a lot of accolades because she's like volunteer of the year. She volunteers for the Tyler Robinson Foundation,
Okay.
and she was like their top volunteer a year and a half ago. She got like another award from the governor for that. So
Amazing.
um,
Amazing.
one of the things I did with my children, or tried to do, is I tried to teach them. Um, I tried to raise them to be prepared to live on their own. Like, I didn't raise my kids to stay home and live with me. And one of the things my parents used to do, like, when I moved out at 18, I would
Mhm.
always get grief because I didn't call my mom or I didn't call my dad. And you're
Mhm.
21, you're going to college, you're working, 70 hours a week.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, your parents aren't really top on your priority. So as my kids have gotten older, I've tried not to do that. I try to communicate, talk to them and keep in touch, but I don't try to make them feel bad if we don't spend time together um, but as they were growing up, like, I feel like I strayed off your question. I think growing up, I tried to talk about being a good person, like having a moral foundation. Examples like my wife comes home one day when my kids, and she had bought a vacuum, and she put it on the bottom of the cart, and the girl missed it, and she missed it. It wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
And she got home with it, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, they didn't ring up the vacuum." She's like, "We just got a vacuum for free, and it's like $120." And I was like, "No, we didn't. No, we can't do that." And so I put all the kids in the car, and I had them come back with me, and I brought the vacuum in and paid for it, because I wanted to see that like that wasn't okay. And
Yeah.
not, and my wife didn't do anything wrong, right?
No.
Like she didn't steal it,
Uh-huh.
but I wanted my kids to understand integrity and truthfulness, and
Accountability.
yeah. And so, and again, I made mistakes as a parent, like, being honest, there were things, if I could go back and do, I would do differently with each one of them.
Yeah.
But I did my best. And fortunately, I think the one thing I drove them crazy about is I talked about drugs all the time. Like, we don't do drugs, we don't do drugs.
Yeah.
There was, one of my kids said to me on the way to school one day, they said, I understand. We've had this talk every day for the whole year. Like, I'm not doing drugs. I get it. And I'm like, yeah, but you need me to continue to remind you. Like, that's how things stick, is if I continue to remind you. So, yeah, I think the other thing is I knew who all my children's friends were.
Okay.
Because we did have everyone at our house.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't want to paint this picture. Like, our house wasn't perfect. Me and my kid's mom, we didn't always get along. We had, we would fight, and like everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
But we made our house so that my kids would bring their friends there, so I knew who my kids' friends were. Because like, and there were two different times two of my daughters had a friend that I didn't care for, that I thought was, one of them I caught a text where the friend was telling my daughter to lie to me. And then another one got, said something smart to my wife that wasn't like, I don't remember all the circumstances, but it was inappropriate. And so when we got home, I told my daughter she couldn't be friends with that kid anymore. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to hang out with that kid anymore. And the other one, the one that caught in the lie, I told my daughter, you can't spend time with that kid either. And at the time, my kids were mad at me, but one of the things I saw as a cop is the kids who got in trouble generally got in trouble from their friends. Like, it wasn't that the parents weren't giving good advice at home. It was that they didn't know what was happening with their kids so in that regard, I was kind of strict with who my kids' friends were. I would check up on where they were and who they were doing stuff with. And after they grow up, you find out, okay, well, one of my kids had a friend that, they go over there and drink at the house and I didn't know, or, there was like normal stuff, but nothing terrible, right? None of my kids had drug problems. None of my kids have alcohol problems. And so for me as a dad, that's the win, right? And the biggest win is they're all good human beings. Like,
I think
all four of my kids are good, caring people.
Yeah. And I think coming back to the question, what you're really saying through that is that, you've laid a moral foundation for your kids so that they can go out on their own. And when, danger or bad influences approach them, they're not going to be removed from that moral foundation. And I think another important fatherly advice thing that you brought up there is being a part of your kids' lives, knowing what they're doing. See, like, even when it comes to technology, you know what I'm saying? Knowing what your kids are watching on the internet, know who your kids are watching or talking to on the internet, and, having that knowledge being a part of their lives.
I saw that a lot when I was in the internet crimes, the amount of parents who didn't know their kids were being groomed or being pursued. And
Yeah.
so, you know, again, I was probably a little overbearing, if I'm being honest, at the
Yeah.
time. But the trade-off for me was my kids were safe. Like that was the trade-off. And none of them were, like I wasn't so overbearing that my kids have trauma, or, at least I don't believe my children have trauma. They're all leading pretty good lives. They all have good heads on their shoulder. And look, we don't agree on everything, right? Like I'm a more conservative guy just because of my law enforcement, and my
Yeah.
kids are much more liberal than me. So politically, there's things we don't agree about, but I respect their point of view. I respect their opinions. I respect their life choices. And, I think that's the other thing as a dad is they don't need to live their life the way that I'm living my life. And they don't need to live their life the way it's not up to me to decide how they choose to live.
Yeah.
I just want my kids to be
Prepared.
and happy. I want them to make choices that make their lives happy. So the things that make them happy, like, look, doing heroin that makes you happy isn't okay. But my kids aren't doing that. But who they choose to vote for, or what causes they believe in, or who they choose as their partner in life, I'm for all of that. And I hope they know that. We don't talk about that all the time. As as they become adults, they just make choices, but I'm content as a father that my kids all have the lives they want to have. I think they're doing well. And, look, you always worry about your children. You can't make their choices for them. You just hope they make good choices. And so far, my kids do. And like, I'm incredibly proud to be their father. I'm incredibly proud of who they all are. And again, I think if you ask them, they're not all going to say that, but that's the truth. You look and you want them to all have good lives, and and look, nothing's promised, right? Like happiness isn't promised. We all have sad times, and like you have moments, and especially me, like I've had 2 divorces, so you have moments in your life where like everything seems like, oh my God, everything just collapsed. My whole life is, and then, 2 years later, you're like, oh shoot. Tom Hanks said that thing. I've seen the viral video where he's like, this too shall pass. That's such a great advice because it's true. Like the day when you think everything is the worst, you look back 2 years later and you're like, okay, it was a shitty time, but it wasn't the worst.
Made it. You survived it, and you always end up stronger because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And I think that's like a beautiful, like an allegory for powerlifting too. Is like powerlifting and life have a lot in general. Is that you put in this work and you suffer injuries and you go through it, but you know what? You're going to get through it, and at the end of the day, you end up stronger because of it.
I agree.
Yeah. I always end the show by saying a piece of, one thing that I appreciate about the guest. And the thing that I appreciate about you is how you represent yourself with honor and integrity always. But also the most important thing is you always shine a bright light. Whichever room you go into, you shine, and it's infectious. You bring a smile to people's faces. I remember meeting you and giving you my super duper ammonia out in nationals.
You did. You saved me that trip. I didn't have any, so that ammonia is still in the gym right now. We're still
it's
using
strong,
it.
right?
Oh my God! I bought a new one for the meet, but the one you gave me is still at my gym. Everybody uses it still. It's great.
It's great.
So,
But
well, that's a wonderful compliment, Jack. I was just as pleased to meet you at the meet. I had told my wife you were going to be there at the time, and like you and I talk on Instagram, but to meet in person, and it was weird the way we met on Instagram because we just kind of started following each other, and then we happened to be there, and so. I think what you're doing with this is a wonderful thing. I think it's nice to bring, we never even got into the toxic masculinity, but
you know what though, because I think that I didn't really need to, because I wanted to bring you on here as an example of, what positive masculinity is. And you presented it with faults and all. And I think that's the most important thing about being a man, is being vulnerable and showing, that we are broken beings just trying our best to heal a broken world. And I think that you're doing that, just with the light you bring to people, the smiles you bring to people, and the wonderful father you are.
Thank you for all that. I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me on. It's great talking to you. We don't get to talk enough, so this was just
Yeah.
to share some time with you,
And I'm going to
live
be
or
out
not,
there
was a
in
great
November.
time.
I'm going to be out there at the Odds Club in November competing. So hopefully I'll get to see you.
Oh, I'll be
There.
at the meet. I'll be helping out somehow.
Okay.
Micah and Kay always drag me in there for something, which is great, right? Like today they had a meet. Was it today?
I saw
Yesterday.
it. Yeah.
It was yesterday. They had the meet yesterday, and it was a small meet, but I worked the door for them, and they're just as passionate as we are. But whatever the case, I'll be there for your meet. I won't miss it.
Awesome.
I'll be there. So I look forward to seeing you. Thank you for having me on your show. I
Thank
hope
you.
that
And
everybody enjoyed.
I'll close it out with, that's it for today's episode of The Other Side of Tough. I'm Jack Starr, reminding you that strength is found on the other side. Catch you the next time. Thank you, Dolphins. I wore this Dolphin shirt for you, by the way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I love the Dolphins. I'm a big Miami Dolphins fan.
Dan Marino's the best. Dan Marino's
He sure was. Yeah, yeah. So,
all right, my friend.
all right, Jack.
You take
care, buddy.
And we'll see each other in November.
I will be here. All right.
Thank you,
I don't know how to end this, though. You're going to have to end it.
I'm ending it. Have a good one.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.